Let me tell you something right now. Success doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you're uninspired. It doesn't care if you don't feel like doing the work today. Success bows to one thing and one thing only: consistency. You see, too many people are waiting for motivation. They want to feel inspired before they take action. But that's the mistake that keeps them stuck. Winners don't wait for motivation. They create it through disciplined action. Think about it. Anybody can show up when they feel good. Anybody can take action when they're excited. But what separates the successful from the average is what you do when you don't feel like it. Champions don't negotiate with their feelings. They don't wake up and ask, do I feel like working today? No. They wake up and say, what must be done? And then they do it. Most people believe that success is about passion, motivation, or raw talent. They think that the people who win in life are the ones who wake up every day feeling inspired, energized, and ready to take massive action. But that's not the truth. The real difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't how they feel, it's what they do consistently regardless of their emotions. Feelings are temporary. They come and go like the wind. But discipline is the anchor that keeps you grounded, ensuring that you continue moving forward even when your emotions try to hold you back. Discipline means doing what must be done even when you don't feel like doing it. It's waking up early to work on your goals even when your body craves more sleep. It's putting in the extra effort when everyone else is relaxing. It's sticking to the plan even when distractions and temptations pull at you from every direction. A person ruled by their emotions will always be inconsistent. One day they're all in, ready to conquer the world. The next day they're tired, uninspired, and looking for a reason to delay. But someone who operates with discipline pushes past those temporary feelings and takes action anyway. Think about professional athletes, world-class entrepreneurs, or top performers in any field. Do you think they always feel like training, working, or showing up? Absolutely not. But they do it anyway because they understand that consistency creates results. They don't rely on motivation because motivation is unreliable. It's fleeting. One day you feel like you can take on the world, the next day you feel like quitting. If you only take action when you feel good, you will never achieve greatness because your emotions will always betray you at some point. The key to winning in any area of life is mastering your ability to act independently of how you feel. If you let emotions control your behavior, you will always be inconsistent. And inconsistency is the fastest way to failure. You don't build a business by working on it only when you're excited. You don't build a strong body by going to the gym only when you're in the mood. You don't develop a powerful mindset by feeding it positivity only when life is easy. Every great achievement comes from disciplined, repetitive effort that compounds over time. There will be days when you feel tired, days when you feel discouraged, days when you question whether or not you're making progress. This is where most people quit. They assume that if they don't feel inspired, they should stop. But this is exactly where you separate yourself from the rest. If you can push through those moments, if you can train yourself to act regardless of how you feel, you will develop an unstoppable mindset that makes success inevitable. Success isn't about how you feel in the moment. It's about what you consistently do over time. Your emotions will always try to negotiate with you. They'll whisper in your ear, telling you to take it easy, to slow down, to rest. They'll try to convince you that you're too tired, too busy, or too overwhelmed to take action. But the moment you give in to those feelings, you weaken your ability to stay consistent. Every time you let your emotions dictate your actions, you reinforce the habit of inconsistency. And if you allow inconsistency to take root in your life, your progress will always be short-lived. The people who win in life have trained themselves to ignore their feelings when it's time to work. They don't wake up and ask themselves if they feel like chasing their goals today. They don't let temporary emotions determine their actions. Instead, they wake up and follow through on their commitments no matter what. They understand that feelings are unreliable, but discipline is dependable. They understand that their future success is determined not by how inspired they feel, but by how consistent they remain. If you can force yourself to be disciplined, if you can train yourself to act despite your feelings, you will develop the single greatest skill that guarantees success. Because at the end of the day, success is never about talent, luck, or motivation. It is always and will always be about discipline. Most people underestimate the power of small, consistent actions over time. They believe that success comes from one big breakthrough, one massive effort, or one lucky moment. But the truth is, success is built in the quiet, repetitive actions that seem insignificant in the moment, but compound into something great. Every small step, every daily habit, every disciplined effort adds up, creating a force that carries you forward, even when you don't realize it. This is the power of momentum, when consistency builds upon itself until success becomes inevitable. Momentum is what happens when your efforts start to stack up. At first it feels slow, almost like nothing is happening. You put in the work, but you don't see the results right away. This is where most people quit. They assume that because they don't see progress, nothing is working. But what they don't realize is that consistency is like rolling a snowball down a hill. At first, it's small and slow, but with each turn, it picks up more snow, grows larger, and moves faster. The more you stay consistent, the stronger your momentum becomes, and the easier it gets to keep going. Think about a heavy flywheel. When you first start pushing it, it barely moves. You have to put in a tremendous amount of effort just to get it to turn once. But if you keep pushing little by little, it begins to pick up speed. Eventually, the momentum takes over, and what was once difficult becomes effortless. That's how success works. In the beginning, it feels like a struggle. It feels slow. It feels like you're pushing with all your might and getting nowhere. But if you stay the course and keep applying pressure, that momentum will build, and soon the effort that once felt heavy will feel automatic. The problem is that most people never push long enough to reach that point. They start and stop. They put in effort for a few days or weeks, then give up when they don't see immediate results. What they don't realize is that every time they stop, they reset their momentum back to zero. It's like trying to push that flywheel over and over again, never giving it enough time to gain speed. That's why consistency is so powerful. When you show up every day and keep pushing forward, even in small ways, you never lose your progress. Instead, you build on what you've already done, making each step easier than the last. Momentum isn't just about making progress, it's about making success automatic. When you do something over and over again, it becomes a habit. Your brain no longer has to think about it. It just becomes part of who you are. A person who consistently works out doesn't have to force themselves to go to the gym. They just do it. A person who consistently builds their business doesn't have to fight the urge to procrastinate. They just get to work. When consistency creates momentum, discipline turns into instinct, and success becomes second nature. The beauty of momentum is that it works in both directions. Just as good habits can build momentum toward success, bad habits can build momentum toward failure. Every time you skip a day, every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you allow excuses to win, you're building momentum in the wrong direction. And just like success, failure doesn't happen overnight. It happens because of small, consistent choices that compound over time. That's why it's critical to be aware of your daily actions. Everything you do is either moving you closer to your goals or further away. Momentum also creates confidence. When you see yourself making progress, even in small ways, you start to believe in yourself more. You realize that you are capable, that you are in control, that you have the power to shape your future. Confidence doesn't come from wishing for success. It comes from proving to yourself day after day that you are committed. The more you show up, the more you trust yourself, and the more unstoppable you become. What starts as small, disciplined action turns into a force so powerful that it becomes impossible to stop. What once felt difficult becomes effortless. What once seemed far away suddenly becomes your reality. But none of it happens without consistency. The people who succeed aren't the ones who work the hardest for a short time. They're the ones who work consistently long enough to let momentum take over. Excuses are the great destroyers of potential. They disguise themselves as logical reasons, convincing people that their limitations are real, when in reality, they are nothing more than self-imposed barriers. People tell themselves they don't have enough time, they don't have enough money, they weren't born into the right circumstances, or they don't have the right connections. But the truth is, no empire, no legacy, no success story was ever built on excuses. Every person who has achieved greatness had just as many reasons to quit as anyone else, but they made a decision to rise above their excuses and do whatever it took to win. Excuses are comfortable. They provide an easy way out, a justification for staying exactly where you are. When things get hard, when results don't come fast enough, when obstacles arise, it's tempting to lean on excuses to explain why success hasn't happened yet. But every time you make an excuse, you give away your power. You allow external circumstances to control your destiny instead of taking responsibility for your own outcomes. The people who build empires refuse to be victims of their situation. They refuse to accept limitations. They refuse to let their circumstances dictate their future. The most dangerous thing about excuses is that they sound reasonable. I'm too busy. That sounds like a valid reason, but the truth is, people make time for what they prioritize. I don't have enough money. That might seem like a legitimate limitation, but history is filled with entrepreneurs who started with nothing and still built massive wealth. I don't know where to start. That might feel like a real problem, but in today's world, information is everywhere. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't resources, it's mindset. Those who win find a way, while those who lose find an excuse. Excuses keep people trapped in mediocrity. They give the illusion of effort while producing no results. Someone might say they want to build a business. But instead of taking action, they spend years talking about why they can't do it. They waste time explaining why the timing isn't right, why they don't have the skills yet, why they need to wait for the perfect opportunity. But the truth is, there is never a perfect time. There will never be a moment when all conditions align perfectly. The only way to move forward is to start where you are with what you have and refuse to stop. People who build empires understand that results don't come from excuses. They come from action. They know that success doesn't care about their personal struggles. It doesn't care if they're tired, if they've failed before, or if they feel unprepared. Success rewards those who take action, no matter how imperfect. Those who win don't wait for permission, the right circumstances, or some external validation. They get up every day, put in the work, and figure it out along the way. There will always be obstacles. There will always be difficulties. There will always be challenges that seem impossible to overcome. But the difference between those who succeed and those who don't is what they do when they face those challenges. The weak make excuses, the strong find solutions. When a door is closed, Some people stand outside complaining about how unfair life is. Others kick the door down or build a new one. It's never about the challenge, it's about the response. Every excuse you make pushes your goals further away. Every time you justify why you can't do something, you reinforce the belief that you are powerless. But the moment you eliminate excuses from your life, everything changes. When you take full ownership of your results, good or bad, you gain control over your future. You stop waiting for things to change and start making them change. The most successful people in the world have the same 24 hours in a day as everyone else. They have the same struggles, the same fears, and the same doubts. The only difference is that they refuse to let those things stop them. The truth is, excuses will always be available, but so will opportunities. It's up to you to decide which one you will embrace. Some people spend their whole lives explaining why they couldn't succeed, while others write their names in history by refusing to accept failure. The choice is simple. Either let your excuses rule your life or take charge and build something great. You said, decide to be consistent now. Expand it and don't add any ending sentence and make it lengthy in a paragraph without heading and conclusion. ChatGPT said, waiting for the right moment to be consistent is one of the biggest traps that keep people stuck. They convince themselves that they'll start when they feel ready, when they have more time, when circumstances are better, but that day never comes. There will always be distractions, challenges, and reasons to delay. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes. Success doesn't happen someday. It happens when you make a decision and commit to it no matter what. The time to be consistent isn't later, it's now. Consistency is not something that just happens on its own. It requires a conscious decision, an internal shift where you stop negotiating with yourself and start taking action. Too many people treat their goals like an option instead of a commitment. They do it when it's convenient, but the moment things get uncomfortable, they stop. That's why they never see results. The people who win don't allow their emotions to dictate their action. They don't wait until they feel like being consistent. They decide that consistency is not a choice, it's a requirement. Every day you delay making this decision, you fall further behind. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken your ability to follow through. Every time you tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, you train your mind to accept procrastination as normal. But the truth is, you don't need another day to think about it. You don't need more time to prepare. You already know what needs to be done. The only thing left is to commit and follow through. If you want results, you have to stop hesitating and start executing. Most people never reach their full potential because they spend too much time planning and not enough time doing. They get caught up in overthinking, waiting for everything to be perfect before they start. But success is not about perfection, it's about persistence. You don't need a perfect plan to be consistent, you just need the discipline to show up every single day. The best way to improve, to grow, to succeed is through action. The more you take action, the more momentum you build. The more momentum you build, the easier it becomes to keep going. When you make the decision to be consistent now, you free yourself from the cycle of starting and stopping. You break the habit of inconsistency that has been holding you back. You stop looking for shortcuts and start embracing the process. Every great achievement is the result of small, consistent actions that add up over time. The reason most people fail is not because they aren't capable, it's because they quit too soon. They don't stay consistent long enough to see the results of their effort. But the moment you decide that quitting is no longer an option, everything changes. Being consistent isn't about working hard for a few weeks and then slowing down. It's about showing up every day, even when you don't see immediate results. The greatest rewards come to those who stay the course. Every time you push forward, Even when it's difficult, you strengthen your discipline. Every time you refuse to make excuses, you build the resilience needed to succeed. The people who achieve the most aren't always the smartest, the most talented, or the luckiest. They're simply the ones who refuse to stop. If you truly want change, if you truly want success, you have to take control of your habits now. You can't afford to be inconsistent. You can't afford to keep waiting for motivation. You can't afford to keep stopping and starting. The reason so many people never reach their goals is because they keep resetting their progress. They build for a few weeks, then tear it all down when they stop. But the people who make a real impact, the ones who reach the highest levels of success, are the ones who never stop building. Nothing will change until you decide to be consistent now. The results you want are waiting for you on the other side of discipline, focus, and daily action. But you have to make the choice. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. So here's the challenge. Decide today that you will be consistent. Not when you feel like it, not when it's convenient, right now.